Okay.
Here. This is where we're going to start from. So what's good to know for you guys is that during this class, there's going to be parts where I'm going to talk in like, I'm going to be explaining or demonstrating something for you, and then you can just sit back and relax and just watch. You don't have to follow along with everything. And then when I say like, okay, now you can follow what I'm doing, or we're going to do something together, that is when you're actually going to be working in Unreal and making your own things.
Yeah, except for me.
Except for you. So you can just watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
All right. Before we get started, I will show you what we're going to be working on, because I had a little demo prepared. We're going to make a material, and the material is going to do this for us. It's going to set us on fire. Just a little demonstration, like I'm going over fire, I'm catching on fire, and as soon as I'm away from it, I'm not on fire anymore. That's it. That's what we're going to do today.
Okay.
All right. So I'm already in a new level that we just created, or a new level that we're started from. So before we are going to make any of this, in your content, if you have your folders here, if you just select your content, you have maybe already a bunch of folders in here. And just to keep things organized, we're going to set up everything that we make in our own little folders. So first, we're just going to create a new folder. If I just right click, you get this little menu. And on the top, you get a new folder. And you can give it a name. For me, I'm just going to call it the live class. And create. And that will be our folder where we put everything that we make in there. We're going to create even 2 more folders. One is going to be for our material or materials. And we're also even going to do a little bit of blueprint, which might sound scary. It's not. It's going to be very easy. But that's for later. Everything, one thing at a time. So we have a folder for our materials and our blueprints later. And now we just need to get into this level. And there's many ways that you can open a new level. One would be right click, and maybe you already saw it before, you can make a level. But that will just give us a totally black empty level. So we're gonna make it a little bit easier for ourselves. If you go to the top left with files, you can click on new level, and it will give you already a couple more options. And what you have to do is just click on the basic version and then hit create. And then you should be in this basic level. It just has its own lighting already set up. It has a floor and a player start in there. If you can see on the top left, it still says untitled, which means that we did create this level, but it's not really saved yet. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to be saving a lot just in case anywhere along the way it crashes. Anytime we do something new, we create something, we're going to save. And I usually just press Ctrl S, or you can go to File and Save Current Level. That's also fine. But it will give you the pop-up, and then you will have all your folders, and you just have to find the one that you just created, and then you can give your new level a name, whatever you want it to be. I'm just gonna match it with the folder, and then save, and then it will show up here in the same folder. So that's what we got so far. Everyone good with that? Yay, we made our first level.
Let's start Unreal, but it's updating.
It's updating.
It's updating. I'm at 5.3.1, so it's updated to 5.3.2. I tried it yesterday, but it didn't put up. So
do you have an older version as well? You could also use an older version. That's also fine.
Leave it. It's no problem.
Right.
This is what I've done before, so it's
yes,
not new for me.
This is too easy.
You just go on. Just go on.
All right.
Also,
I'll pick up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Colin.
I just noticed that I also need to upgrade my macOS to use Xcode. So it's I was trying, but this is it for me.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, there's a couple of things already in our world here. Oh, what is happening there? There's already a little folder for us with lighting, which is all these parts in the middle. And lighting is by itself already a very big topic, which we're not going to touch on. So to make it easy for us, if we just select all of this, I just click and then shift to select all. I'm just going to drag these out of sight. If I just click on this arrow, I'm just going to drag them away because I don't want them to be distracting me or anything. If you want to navigate around in your level, for everyone that's like new in Unreal, if you are maybe a gamer, WASD are the controls, but it might not do anything for you yet. What you still have to do is click your right mouse button and then should be able to move around. And to add on top of that, you can press Q to go down and E to go up. That's some basic navigating around the Unreal viewport. And then, yeah, if you click anything, let's say click this little player start, by default, it shows the location to move it around. But maybe you want to scale something, then you can use R to make things bigger or smaller. Or if you press E, then you can rotate things. It's not really important for us for this class, but it's good to know when you're just starting out in Unreal. All right, if at any point we make new things, like here, there's this little cross on my level, which means that something isn't saved yet, or I did something new and that hasn't saved. So to be sure, I'm just gonna Control S again to make sure that everything is up to date. All right. So the goal is to make our little fire effect, and that's gonna overlay on the camera. So to start with that, we first need something to, kind of control that. And what we need for that is a post-process volume. And we're just going to add that into our scene first. On the top left here, you have this quickly add to project, which will give you a drop down of a bunch of things that you can add into your project. Like I said, it was a volume, so maybe you might already assume it's in the volume tab, which is right. It's right here, post-process volume. That's one way that you can add it in. But at any point, if you're maybe looking for something, you can just hover over this get content, and then you can just start typing post-process volume, and then it will also pop up. So maybe if at one point you're not sure where something was, you can just always type it in, and it should be able to pop up for you. And if I then click on it, or we click on it, it will show in our level, just like that. Does anyone maybe know what a post-process volume is? Or has maybe worked with it before?
I've done some things in another course, but I'm not completely sure about it. What it did was where I used it for was lighting.
Yep, that's
especially lighting,
yeah.
just to prevent the changes by that are
the exposure. Yeah,
exposure.
Yeah, that's one of the main things.
It keeps the lighting in the scene quite similar. If you have well, I won't get into the file, but the lumen specification can be very difficult to get to see things. You shift it off, and you can control it in here. So you have one place. You have steady lighting of the whole scene.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned from it, but that's all. That's all I know.
If you have the post process selected, you should see a little details panel here, and it has a bunch of things that it's controlling. It's often used for the exposure, like to make a scene very bright or maybe darker. But yeah, you can give it kind of a color grade. Maybe you want it to look more like a movie that plays in the desert, and you want it to be like a little of a warmer color, or you want to have an effect that overlays on the camera. It also controls like motion blur, reflections. There's like a bunch of information in here. Just to give a bit of a demonstration, I'm I'm just gonna give my scene a little color. There's a little tab called color grading. Let's say I want to make my scene crazy. I want to make it purple. Now, it does say that it's purple, but it's not really showing. That is because by default, it only shows up when I'm inside of this little volume, which might in some cases be useful if you just want a specific area to be have a specific feel or a different kind of color, or it should be darker. But it's easier if we have it on our whole scene, and we could scale this box up very big to overlay our whole screen, but Unreal is making it very easy for us. If I type in bounds or unbound, there's this little box here, infinite extent, unbound. If I check that, it will automatically, I mean, the thing itself will stay this size, but it will just overlay on the entire scene. Just to show you how that would work. Now, of course, we don't want our scene to be pink or purple or anything, but just a little demonstration of what you can do with it. And this is why we are gonna later apply our material to be on our screen to show the fire. But just for now, we just need to have this in our scene and just make sure that you have that infinite ascent set to true, so it's checked on. That's all you need to know. You can check just to make sure, you can check, give it a little color just to see if it's working, but by default, that should be working. Again, we've added some stuff. I'm just gonna save it again to make sure everything is up to date. All right. Everyone good so far? Am I going too fast? I tend to talk a bit fast, but yeah. No one's asking any questions.
Yeah, I do have questions.
Ah, shoot.
where can I find the grain one? So I got the unbound one on. That's
Yeah.
not a problem at all. But now it seems like I can't find the
You want to test if it's working?
motion blur. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would like to test if it's working. I see motion blur and translucent.
Yeah, there should be one that's color grading. That's the specific one. It doesn't have to be. You can also, for example, check temperature. And let's say I set this to 3000, then it's very cold all of a sudden. That's like just one way of testing it. But what I did, I went into color grading and then global, and I think I did the gain.
I can just search for color grading as well, right? And then you did the grain part. And then
gain,
gain.
And then you can
okay, works.
Just be sure to revert it. You can just press that arrow, or usually Control Z also works to revert. All right. Now we're gonna go into our material. We're gonna do the real work. I will first show you what the material looks like before we're actually gonna make it. I already had it set up before. This is what we're gonna be making today. Now that's a bunch of nodes, a lot of information, a lot of strings. If you're like me and this is something you see for the first time, it might be very overwhelming. I remember when I got into Unreal, if I was looking into tutorials and you saw this come by, I was like, ooh, that's a lot of information. I don't know if I'm ever going to learn all of that. I can promise you by the end of this lecture, you're going to know exactly what everything is doing, and you're going to be able to use it to iterate on what we have made, or just to make the exact same thing from scratch. Yeah, everything you see here, by the end of this lecture, you will know what everything is. So do not be afraid. This is the material editor. We're gonna open it shortly. I'll quickly explain already. To move around, you just have to right click and then you can drag along and just scroll in and out. If you at any point want to add one of these things, if you right click, again, you just type whatever you need and it will show up for you. But we'll get to that shortly. We're gonna go to our folder that we created before, material folder. And this is where we're gonna create our material. And we do that by right clicking. And it is one of the basic assets here on the top. You just click it and then it will create your first material. to keep in line with the official naming conventions from Unreal, we're gonna start naming it at least with M underscore, like it's material, and then you can give it a name. So this will be our fire effect, but you can give it whatever name you want, and just save that as we create it. And then it sits here in our material folder, and we're just gonna open it up. Oh, that's very small. Make it big. Yes. All right, so this is essentially the same thing as I showed before, but it's still empty because we haven't made anything. So the first thing you will see is this node on the right, which just holds all the materials information really. All these little pins is what they're called. You can give that information that will give your material a certain look. And by default, if I have this selected, you can see here, there's a details panel here. By default, the material domain is a surface because that's what's been used the most. Just anything that has a surface in your viewport, you can just give it a material and give it a certain look. But we're gonna make it very easy because we don't need a surface. We need a post process.
Yeah.
So if we click that, you can already see we only have one little pin to worry about, and that's the emissive color. So we don't have to worry about anything else. But our scene also, this is our little example, it also turned black because it doesn't have any information. So I'm just going to get the example again. What we want is to tell our material, okay, display what we see in our level. So display basically what our camera is seeing. And for that, we just use these two nodes. One is called the scene texture node, and we give it a mask. I'll explain shortly what exactly those are and what they do, but we're just gonna put them into our material first so we have some stuff that we can see. So again, if I right click, and the first node was the scene texture, we're gonna type scene texture. It show up under the texture, scene texture. That is the node that we need. Maybe if you paid very close attention, you see one difference. This scene texture is called scene color, and in my example here, it's called scene texture post process. Just to show what happens if I just plug this in right away, I can just drag from this and just connect it to the pin that I need. It gives a little error because basically what it's saying is like, hey, I'm a post-process material, but this is not giving me any post-process information. So this needs to change. And then we go to our little drop down. There's a bunch of information here. We just need our post-process input, and we just go for 0. And then really, it's displaying what our camera is seeing. But it's kind of hard to test this because we don't really know if it would work if it's just displaying what the camera is seeing. So we kind of want to test that. And we're going to do the same thing as we did before with just testing by giving it a little color. But before we do that, we're going to use the second node, which is the mask. So we're going to add that here as well. So right click. Even though the name is mask, we're going to have to search component mask. That's going to make it easier because I think if we just type mask, it already shows up too. Component mask. All right, that's also going to be in our material here. Now it has R and G selected. We're also going to click B because we need all 3 of them. And to explain this a little bit, what it really does, I mean, RGB can be different channels. When you talk about colors, you can have different channel colors. But because we are talking about a 3D environment, really, you can also translate RGB as to X, Y, and Z. If you look here, these are kind of the axes that things are displaying in. So RGB is also really X, Y, and Z. And because we want to use every direction in the scene, we have to kind of add this to our post-process node as well. It doesn't really change anything for now, but it's just to prevent from any errors popping up later. All right, so this is what is displaying our scene. And to be able to test it, if it's working, we're gonna kind of add a little color to it. To add a color node in our material editor, color is very common, obviously, with the materials. We need, it's called a constant vector 3. This one right here. And because it is so common, it has its little own shortcut. If I hold 3 on my keyboard and I click, it also shows up. There's a lot of nodes that we're going to use today that are so common in the material editor that they have their own little shortcut. So you can, again, right click and search for constant, and then you need a vector 3, which gives, again, also RGB channels in a way.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Maybe it's super simple, but how can I delete a line that is formed prior?
Yeah, there's many ways. You can just kind of, if you hold control, you can drag it out. And then maybe you want to reattach it somewhere else. But if you just let go, it also gets deleted. But you can also click Alt and then click on the line, and then it also gets deleted.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. All right. Everyone has their little color node in here. You can give it a nice color. I'm just gonna go for the nice little pink purple again. So what we want to do now is we want to get this scene information and kind of add this color to it. And we're gonna use a multiply node for that. We're gonna do some math today. So if I search and I search for multiply, it should pop up. But because this is also a very common node, you can also just hold M, click, and then it will also pop up. So either search for multiply or press M and click. And well, this is asking for 2 inputs or 2 numbers really. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, A is going to be our scene, and we're going to multiply it with our color and then plug it in. And as you see in the example, we kind of have the same effect. But now we want to see if we can make that work in our scene here. All right. Does everyone have this? It doesn't need to be the same color, obviously, but at least that part working?
It does,
Yep.
although my vector free node doesn't have the free fields. Like I did enter a color in it on the extra window to the side, but the node itself in the graph view doesn't have those fields.
Yeah, you mean it doesn't show the color?
It does show the color. It's just not those the X, Y, and Z fields. It doesn't show in the node itself.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's basically displaying this. That's weird though, why it's not.
That's it.
Do I have to split it some kind of thing?
No.
Or?
No.
Isn't
Okay.
it up in the header?
It is in the header. It's like the exact same except for those free fields. Like I was able to assign my color on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
It works though, but I just wonder if that's
it works,
something
it
I should
works.
be.
Maybe that's. Are you on 5.2 maybe? Maybe that's like.
No, I'm on 5.0, I think.
Maybe that's like a little update.
How is the box called again?
The box?
From that color, yeah. Compress or something?
Constant vector 3. It's basically saying like give me 3 fields of information.
Yeah, maybe Lizzie has constant 2 vector or 1 vector or just
Could be.
Constant?
Like.
But I think this part is just missing. But it just says if the color is displaying, then it should be fine.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna test it right now, and then we'll see. All right. So, we want to apply this material to our post-process volume, but before we do that, we're gonna do one more thing. We're gonna right-click on the material, and on the top, it says create a material instance. We're basically gonna make kind of a copy, a little baby of the material. So we're gonna make a material instance, and because this is not really material, I'm gonna start with MI as in material instance, and then fire effect. MI fire effect. If I open this up, you'll see it is very different. It doesn't show the material graph like we had. For now, it's not really important, but we'll get to it later as to why this is useful. Make sure you have this selected, and then in the post-process volume, we can search for material, and then, or you can search for the rendering features tab. But if you have this one, post-process materials, it shows you an array, which basically implies that you can have multiple materials applied to your post-process. We just need the one, so we're just going to add the plus ones and then choose our asset reference. This is where we're going to apply our material, and I can just drag and drop it, but this is why I wanted you to select it, because it's very easy to just also click the arrow, or you just drag it into there. That's also fine. In my case, like you see, I now have my fire effect working, or at least the information that we have so far is applied to this post process. All good there? Is that working for you, Lisanne? Yeah? Okay, cool. Now, yeah, we know it's working, so I'm just gonna save. Obviously, this is not the result that we want, so for now, I'm just gonna delete this. We also don't need to multiply anymore. I'm just gonna go back to just these two nodes. And for future references, what I always like to do is to make a little comment box around this. So I have these two by dragging, I have them both selected, and I press C, and it gives me this little comment box. And I'm just gonna basically explain what these two nodes are doing, which is they give me the scene image, or the scene texture. Basically, that's what they both are doing together. All right, so we have our first part. We have our post-process material working, and it's displaying our scene. All right, I want to go back to our demo version.
Do you mind telling me again where I should put the effect when I click on post-process volume on the site?
If you then search for material.
Search for material, okay.
It should give this post-process material, and then it has an array, and you just have to click the plus button and then choose asset reference. And then you can either drag and drop it into that little bar.
The MI effect, fire effect.
The MI
the
fire
clone,
effect.
what we made. Okay, got it, thanks.
Or you can, if you have it selected, you can press the arrow. I see that my effect is still working, probably because I have not saved it after. Yeah, we're back to normal. All right. So this is what is working. So the next thing we want to do is to have our fire kind of overlay, or at least be able to show any kind of fire effect on this scene texture. And that's what we're doing here in the bottom. This is what we're first going to create. Now these are a bunch of new nodes, and we're just going to take them one at a time, and we're going to start with this very one, which is the texture sample. And that's just going to take the texture of the fire, and we're going to, same as what we did with the color really, we're just going to add it to the screen just to see if we can make that work. So we're just going to add one new node. It's called texture sample. So again, you can right click, search for texture sample, but because this is also one of the nodes that's very commonly used, you can press T and click, and it will show up for you as well. And by default, it's black. And of course, we have to then go and select in the details panel here. You can already see the texture. And this is where we're gonna select our fire texture. And that's the whole reason why we added the whole starter content, because that's the one that's holding our fire texture, but it's holding a bunch of things. If we search for fire, it should show up T fire tiled. Just gonna click that one, and then it shows up. So far, so good, everyone? All right, great. What we did before with the color is we multiplied it, and we can just for demonstration purposes, I will show you what it looks like if we do the same thing. So we get our scene and we get our fire and we add those together. Now this looks very scary and a bit intense. This is not really what we're going for. But basically multiplying it's really making things a bit darker because you're yeah, everything you already have, it just makes it by multiplying it makes it darker, if that makes sense. We're gonna use a different node for this one. I'm gonna delete the multiply. And before we're gonna use it, I'm just gonna demonstrate how it works. It's called the lerp node. Full out, it's linear interpolate, but lerp in short. Also a very common one, so later if you're gonna use it, you can just press L and it will pop up. I'm just gonna show you what it does. All right, it's all gray. Very cool. What we see, it has a B, and an alpha. And by default, A is 0, B is 1, and the alpha is 0.5. So for the material, what you need to know is that everything that has a value of 0 is going to be black, and everything that has a value of 1 is basically going to be white. So what the alpha is doing is kind of blending in between these two values. So right now it's 0.5, but if I turn this into 1, it will be white. And if I turn this into 0, it will be black. And if 0.1, 0.3, you know, it's just blending in between those values really. So that's what we're gonna do here. So if I now put my scene into A and then the fire into B, oh, now it's set to 5.5, that's better. Then we kind of have a better blend, and I can make this, I can say like, okay, maybe I want a little bit less of the fire, maybe a bit more intense. I'm just gonna keep it at like 0.4 for now, 0.4 for now. All right. So lerp, it just takes two values and it allows you to blend in between the two. Very useful to know for later. All right, this is what you can set up. So make sure you put a lerp node in there. Either search for, you can just type lerp, linear interpolate, or again, you can press L and it shows up. And then make sure you put the scene information to A, and then the fire texture will go into B. And then you can give it whatever value you think is good. Make sure you save it, and then you can check in your scene if you get kind of the same result. At least now we have our fire texture that's on top of our camera, and we have a bit of a blend going on. We can still see our scene, but the fire is also there. Now we know that fire obviously never is very still like this, and what it's doing now is this texture is just being kind of stretched on top of the scene, just making it a bit big, if you ask me. So this is something that we want to be controlling. We want to be able to give it some movement, that it looks like it's actual fire, and maybe also to be able to control to make it look a bit smaller, or maybe even bigger if that's what you want. So if I go back to the demo version, that's what we're doing with these 3 nodes, or 4 nodes. The multiply we already know. The panner node, that's the node that makes things move really, to make it easy. And these 3 nodes together is what allow us to kind of change the size or the tiling of our texture. That's where we're gonna start with. All right. Just to demonstrate, I'll start with the first node here, which is the texture coordinate node. And I'll just show you texture coordinate, what it does. If I just plug this in, it will give me this strange result, which is really a UV display. You kind of can think it as, I have to say it right, I always get them mixed up. V, double check, let me double check. Yes, V is the vertical, and the U is really the horizontal line. So it takes the UVs of this texture, and we can basically kind of manipulate that then. That's what we're doing, or what we're gonna be doing. I can always show it really, because it already allows you to change some information here. So let's say if I change the U time to 10, it already gives a bit of a different result, but it's gonna be easier to show with our own little fire texture. All right, I'm gonna plug this back in. You can now add this to your material. So texture coordinate. If you click that, it should drop in as a little red node in here. And we're gonna bring back our multiply. If you remember, it has a little shortcut. And in this case, well, let's just plug this together just to show. Basically what we're saying now is we have the UV, so this information from the texture, and we're saying we just times one it, so just one texture. But let's say if I times 10 this, then you'll see in the U and the V, the texture is displayed on each side like 10 times. So we have the same texture 100 times on our screen right now, which is not really what we want, but you get the idea. So if we go back to 1, this is just our texture one time, but maybe if we do 2 times or 3 times, you can already see it gives a little bit of a different effect. You can also do 2.5, or you can even make it really 0.3 if you just want a huge flame. You can be a bit creative with that, but for the example, I'm just gonna go for 2.5 right now. Yeah. Just make sure we save. So right now we have our texture, and we're kind of manipulating how big or how many times it's applied to our scene. This already gives a very different effect. All right. If you remember before, we made our little clone, as Carmen so nicely mentioned, the material instance. And I'm gonna explain to you now why this is very interesting, because what we're doing now is anytime we change something in here, we have to save it and go back and see if it works. But the material instance is what makes this even easier. If we set up any parameter, like a value that we can change in our material, it will show up in our material instance, and then we can just change the numbers in there or the values in there, and it will change, apply those changes in real time. So we don't have to always go back and forth into our material and keep changing things. So that's what we're going to set up now. If you remember, the color was a constant 3 vector, which has 3 inputs, but we only need 1 for this one. So I can just hold 1 and click, and it will just give me this one value that we're then gonna plug in here. And I'm gonna also give that a 2.5, and that will give us the same result. This is the basic. If you just search for constant without any number, it will give you that same node. All right, and now to show this in our material instance, we need to make this a parameter. And if you right click on the node, it on the top says convert to parameter. And then to know what we're gonna be changing, so this is gonna change the tiling of our texture, of our effect. So tiling, let's just say texture. Give it a name, save. And now, just making sure if everyone is still following along. Tiling our texture. If I'm gonna go back to my level and I'm gonna open my material instance. This is a bit bigger than I need to be. Now it will show up here. And if I now change the tiling, I can see it change basically in runtime. So I don't have to keep going back and forth. I can just set my number in here, save it, and it will be applied right away. So that's one of the ways why a material instance is very useful. Another thing can also be, but that's maybe not really a good example for a post-process material. Let's say you have made a material that is just a color, and you have maybe a scene with a bunch of houses, and you want some houses to be red and some houses to be green and some houses to be yellow. Then you can make a parameter of your color, and then you can make multiple instances of your material, And then in one, you can set them to green, and you can apply those to whatever house you want to be green. And for another, you can set them to yellow or red. You can just make different kinds of copies of your material and just change one little thing that you want to have changed and apply that to multiple assets if you want, without having to change the material itself. All right, that's what we got so far. Everyone still good? Great. All right, then the next thing we're gonna do is we want to make our fire move around a little bit, make it come alive. And that's what we need the panner node for. So you can search panner. It will give you the panner option, but panner is also very common. So you can also just press P and click and it will show up. And you can see it wants some coordinate information and it has speed and it has time. For now, we're just gonna drag this multiply output into the coordinates, and then the other side is gonna go into our UVs. All right, so here we have X and Y, and as you remember, RGB can be read as XYZ, so R is gonna be X and G is gonna be Y. So if we put in some numbers here, you can see it's gonna move our texture, in this case, over the Y-axis in one. And if I change it to X, it's gonna do the same. And I can even do like -1 if I wanted to go down. But for our effect, we want the fire to kind of move up a little bit. So let's say maybe 0.2 might be good, 0.3, whatever you think would be a good fit. And then just make sure you save it. And then we have that. So we have our fire texture. We're telling it to move up slightly. And this part here is allowing us to multiply the texture, or maybe even make it smaller if you want. All right, now that we have set that up, we can select all of this and press C to make a little comment box. And this is just our fire texture. Save that. Just for what's interesting to know, even this texture sample, if I right click, I can also convert this into a parameter. So maybe let's say if you're working on a game and you have your fire parameter or your fire texture effect set up, but maybe you also want to have the same kind of thing, but if someone is maybe attacked and freezing and you want to have kind of a freezing look or a shock attack, you can make this texture a parameter. And the same as that you can change the colors, you can also make different material instances and then swap out the textures as well and just make different versions of the same effect really. All right, we're already almost done with our material. Next thing we're going to do is we want to give our material a color, or at least be able to manipulate the color. And that's what's happening here. We've already seen this node, which is the vector 3 or constant 3, which gives us the color, but these are already made into parameters. That's why they have a little name. And we have the lerp node again. So we're just going to add these things together. I will first maybe explain a bit more how this works, because as you see, we have our texture going into the alpha and then our colors go into the A and B. That's the most important thing for now to know. Let's just first maybe set up our colors in here. I have to create some more room. I can just select the comment box, drag this down. You can also give this a color, by the way, if you want. Maybe you want this to be like red. Or yeah, it can be anything you want. All right, first we need colors. One way we can do what we did before is either search for the constant 3 vector, drag it in, or we can press 3 again, and then it will be there as well. But we already know we want to make this into a parameter so that we can manipulate the color later. And that also already has its own little shortcut, which is holding V for the vector and then pressing. And this will be my color 1. It will just automatically make a parameter for me. And then you can either do the same, just press V again and name it color 2, or you can duplicate this by Control D. It will also just make a copy of the same node, and then you can give it another name, color 2. Either way, there's many different ways that you can get the same result. All right, so let's say color 1 will be a bit more red, and color 2 will be a bit more of a yellow. All right, now we want to blend this or mix this with our fire texture. But as you see, our fire texture already has a color. It already has a kind of red, orange. And maybe by default you think like, this is fine, I don't need any other color, and then you can just use it as we have it now. But maybe you're making a game and it's more about magic and you want the flames to be a bit more purple or blue, or you at least want to have some control over it. So that's basically what we're going to set up, just so you can give some variations to what we already have. But because it already has a color of itself, if we're then gonna just add more colors to it, it's gonna give a bit of a weird look if we're just gonna add orange to what already is orange. So that is why, as you see, I dragged out from the red channel here, and I'll show you why that is. Again, if I just have this texture open, right now it has 3 channels and they're all 3 are on, and that is what gives us this result. But if you look, each channel has its own little information that makes up the whole texture, the whole color. And if you remember, everything in Unreal that, or in the materials that has like a value of 0 is going to be black and a value of white is going to be 1. So to be able to manipulate the texture, we want to just use a grayscale texture, which is, in this case, in our R channel. So what we want to be doing is we want to say like, okay, everything in this channel that has a value of 1, so what is white, we're going to give that a different information. We're going to say like everything that's white is going to be our red color, and everything that's going to be more black is going to be our yellow color. And that's what we're going to do. So instead of using our RGB, I'm just gonna, just for demonstration purposes, just to show you what it looks like. If let's say A is gonna be yellow, you don't have to follow along for this, but I'm just gonna show you. If I just drag from the RGB, you'll see it's just gonna add red to what's already red and yellow to what's already yellow, and it's give this kind of weird blend. But if I'm gonna drag in the red channel, that's when we get this result. And you can see, I'm just gonna quickly unhook this and just drag the texture in. Basically, did I do it the right way? Yeah. Everything, the A was 0, so everything that's dark or black in this texture is gonna adopt really or use the red color, and everything that has value B, white, that's gonna take over the yellow color. And that's how we kind of manipulate the texture in that way. So now I'm just gonna plug this back in, save. So we have set this up as parameters. So we know now that we can manipulate that information. I'm gonna open my material instance, and you should be able to see your color 1 and color 2. And if you then click these, you can then see if you, let's say, change color 1, if you then make it blue and maybe change color 2 to red or purple, you can get very different effects, very different looks to your fire. So that's just a way of being able to give some creativity, or just being able to iterate on what you already have. Everyone being able to follow along so far? I feel like I've been talking for a long time.
In the meantime, I was able to get the whole thing like you have it on your screen.
Oh, you have it working? Cool.
Yeah, no, I've got a problem. Well, problem was
Tell
a
me.
problem. The last lerp before emissive color. So it gives me an error. Say, arithmetic between type flow 2 and flow 3 are undefined.
Oh, I had that
Can
for
you
a
repeat
second,
that?
and on
I can show
my
you. Wait.
mask, I didn't have all of the channels. Maybe that's why.
Oh, you mean in this node? Do you
Yeah, I
have
had the
RG
same
and
error,
B?
and it was because of that.
Ah, yeah. Make sure that if you have your texture scene texture,
Yeah, personal, yes.
if you then have the component mask, that you have
Oh,
RG
yeah,
and
see,
B,
yeah,
all
I should be.
three.
That's the whole thing. That's
Yeah.
the whole thing. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ev. Glad you figured it out by yourself too.
I just I had to do it fast while you're working. I had to do it. I had to create it again. So I just missed that part
Yeah,
out.
it's good.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
it's good. It's good.
It's good.
You tagged along. Yeah, great. Okay, great. All right. All right. So we have our fire. It's moving. We can give it a color. Then all we need to do now is, well, we do not want our entire scene to be on fire. We just want to be able to kind of control what part of the screen do we want to have our fire overlapping on, or do we want it to go from the top down or down up or left to right? And if we go back to the demo version, that's what's happening right over here. And we're going to bring in a couple of new nodes. There's some that are already familiar. We've multiplied. This is the vector, well, constant 1 parameter. And then there's a bunch of new nodes. This is what we're going to be setting up. And the first node that we're going to play with is this linear gradient. That's really the key to what we have to create. And I'm just going to drag that in here and show you how it works. Maybe what we can first do is comment out the color, fire colors. There we go. I'll give it a little color. Up. All right. What's maybe good to know, if you like to have things organized and maybe you find yourself with things looking a bit messy, if you want to align some nodes together, if you have them selected and press Q, they magically line up. It's very satisfying. Like this, you can see it's not aligned, but then beep, it's aligned. It's very good. It feels amazing. Sometimes sometimes I just mess them up and then realign them. No, just kidding. Okay, linear gradients. That's what we're going to use. Linear gradients. Okay, I'm just going to show you. You can sit back. You don't have to do anything. We again have U and V, and we already know which is what. So if we plug in U, it's going to show us a gradient from left to right. Left is black and right is white, and anything in between is going to be a blend. And as you can guess, V is going to do the same, but top to bottom. And that's really what we want to do. We want to essentially say, okay, everything that has maybe value of 1, kind of, that's going to be fire, and the rest is just going to be our scene texture. So if we look into here, oh yeah. All right. We're just gonna plug this into our alpha. All right. Make sure that you have your linear gradient node and that you use the V gradient, and then you can go ahead and plug that into another. Oh, I'm not sure if we already added this lerp node. Did we? I think we did.
I did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. All right. So now we have our gradient, and you can see that anything that's B, which is our fire, which is white, and everything that's A, which is darker, is going to be our scene. So we're getting closer to the result that we want, but this is still a bit much. So we want to bring that down a little bit, and that's what that power node is doing.
I have a small question. When I look for linear gradients, there's 2 options, a MISC and a...
Go for the gradient one.
Okay, thanks.
All right. the power node, you can just search and look for the power. What the power node is really doing, it's the base. So we're gonna plug our gradient in there and just show you what it will do. Maybe we shouldn't have the texture. No, it's fine. The power node is taking the information, so the base, and it's applying itself by a number or multiplying itself. So it's right now the number exponential is 2. So it's the gradient is going times 2. And if you do, let's say we go for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's kind of bringing down the gradient by multiplying it by itself, really. Now, I'm not really a math expert, so I'm just going to leave it with that. That's what it's doing. It's multiplying the base by whatever number you put in there. I think 8 might be a good way to go. And to be able to get control over this, we again, the same as what we did with the tiling, we want to have this information as a parameter in our material instance. So we're gonna set up a parameter for that. And we can again press 1, bring in the constant node, turn it into parameter, but there is already a shortcut for it. If you press S, click, we get our scalar parameter. That's what it's called, scalar parameter. And let's give this a name. This will, so it will control the height or the contrast of the effect. I'm just gonna call this effect height. And I used the default value of 8, which will be fine. Save. All right.
Could you explain again where you get the effect height?
So basically it's if you type constant, it's that constant 1, or if you press 1, you will also get it, but then you still have to convert it into a parameter. But if you press S and click, it will automatically give you the scalar parameter, and then you can give it that name and the default value and plug it in.
Okay.
All right. We have it. All right. It's already applying, I see. Now let's just check. I'm gonna open the material instance. We have our parameter effect height. And now if I change it, you can see that it's going up and down. I'm just gonna set it back to 8. That's a fine number, I think, to work with. All right. Well, really, we have what we want. We have our fire effect. We have some control over it. But if I now go and play my level, I'm gonna be on fire the whole time. And I don't know about you guys, but that's not really what I want. So our final step would be to get some control over when this is on and when this is off. And there already is, in my case, I still have my post-process volume on. And next to where we applied our material, there's a little number, and 1 is it by default, but if I set this to 0, it goes off as well. Only the problem with this is there is really no in between because, well, as you maybe remember from the example, it kind of like blends in, but this only gives like on and off. So if even 0.001, it just will be on. There's really no in between. So we want to have at least some control over that. And that's the kind of the last thing that we're going to do. This is a new node. Oh, that's difficult. That's the difficult, interesting part. It's a material parameter collection. Whew, that's a whole mouthful. I'm gonna call it MPC for now on to save some time. Our MPC. I'm just gonna show you the example version, which is right here, MPC. And this MPC, basically, it's kind of a global collection of any parameter that you want. So in our current fire effect, we now have our effect height as a parameter, we have our colors as a parameter, and we have the tiling as a parameter. We can also kind of put these into a collection, and then we can, if I were to make a new material, I can just use the same parameters into the same material, really. So an example of how this is often used, let's say you have a game and it starts raining. You have set up some sort of weather system and it starts raining, and you want everything in your level to look wet. You want the surfaces to look a bit wet. And instead of having to change kind of, it's the roughness really that you would usually change. Instead of having to change that in every material and change every single material instance of it, you can just make one wetness kind of parameter and just use that in every material. And then if you change the value for it, it will change on every material that has that single parameter inside of it. So it's kind of a way to connect multiple materials. You'll find if you make more and more materials, there's going to be more and more parameters that is going to be common. And if you just want to have one single control over it, this is one way that you can do it.
Kind of global control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. It's also often used with like wind. You can really control also if you have a game and maybe you see the leaves in the trees are moving, or there's like a gust of wind. That's also often controlled by a global parameter that's just controlling all of the scene really, with just one parameter. But we'll set it up as we go. Just to keep it simple, we're just going to start with a regular parameter, and then later we're going to just convert it. So first thing first, we just want to be able to gradually turn this effect on and off. That's how we're going to start. So we'll just make another parameter. So I'm going to click S, and we have a parameter, and I'm just going to call this fire on off. That's our parameter. So this is our gradient. So what we want to do is multiply this. I'm going to say, okay, take this gradient, and then if the value is really 0, it's just going to be off. And a value of 1 is then going to be on. So on and off. All right, so this is a parameter. I can just check if I get the right one. If I now open my material instance, I'm just going to check. If I slowly turn this down to 0, yeah, that will be a nice blend. Okay, so 0 will be off and 1 will be on. But if you maybe go too far, it will give a bit of a weird effect. So what we want to do is we want to prevent any odd looks from happening. So we just want to be able to limit it to just 0 and 1, which is what our saturate node is doing. If in any case you want to go over what is any node doing, often it has a description, or you can hold Control Alt for more information, and it will direct you to the documentation of the material node. So if I hover over this, it says it clamps the value between 0 and 1, which is what we want. So after our parameter, I'm going to look for saturate. There we have it. And then I'm going to plug that into the B. Just a little extra, like a little safety net. So just to double check, if I go really crazy, anything over 1 and below 0 isn't going to change anything. So just 0 and 1. All right. Let's just keep this on 1 just to have it on. So, all right. So we can now control that it blends in and out more smoothly than we would do through the post-process volume. So the last part would be to control this through the blueprint. That was, if you remember in the demo, I was like walking into a little area, and then the fire would turn on and it would turn off again as I went outside of that volume. And that's really what we're going to be doing. And that's also another reason why we're going to use the material parameter collection, because it's very accessible inside of Blueprints. It's going to make it way easier to control or kind of, control the parameters that we have in here. So let's go back into our folder. Wherever you have your material, you can right click, and it's not going to be a basic asset. It's not that common, but in the material tab, if we go down a little bit, it says material parameter collection, and that's the one we're going to open. And just as we did with the others, we're going to start with the main letters, and for this it's going to be MPC. I'm just gonna call this fire effect as well, just to keep it the same. Everyone still good?
Yep.
Great. All right. So we just want to make the same parameter really inside of our collection. You already see here we have scalar parameter, vector parameters. So this one, these ones, and the tiling, those are all scalar parameters. And if you remember the color ones, those are vector parameters. So those are basically the only kinds of parameters that we can put in there. But for now, the only thing that we need is fire on and off. So we're just gonna make it the same. We're gonna add one element, which is gonna give us a scalar parameter. And then you just have to click this little arrow on the side, give it a name, fire on off, I think it was. And by default, I'm going to give it the value of 1, which is on, just so we can see the effect working. And now all we have to do is then apply that here. So we can delete this one because we won't be needing it, because we will use our collection parameter. If you search collection parameter, it should show up. I'm going to click it, and I think by default it will select the one that you had made before. In my case, it's MPC fire effect. You can search for it in the left side. And then the parameter name, it's gonna just be the one that we made, because we don't have any more than that. And if I then plug that in, we will have basically the same results. But it's just in another.
How do I get the box
another
on
window
again? The fire on off. How do you call that one?
The collection parameter. And then it probably, I'm guessing it's going to show the one that you already made, MPC fire effect. And then in the parameter name, you can select the one that you made and then hook it up. All right. That is all we have, and that's all we need. So we're going to just comment this out. This is going to be our fire gradient or contrast, or what did I call it here? Contrast, yeah. Can be whatever you want it to be. Give it a little color.
It does give me an arrow though.
What does it say?
The MPC fire effect does give me an arrow.
What error does it give?
Just collection parameter has invalid parameter node.
Invalid parameter node?
Yeah. Parameter name. Do I need to give it a name?
Yeah.
Just need to give it a name. Yeah.
Good. No, that's okay. It's always good to double check. Okay, save. All right. We're gonna go a little bit rogue. We're gonna, because we want this by default not to be on really, we're gonna set in our collection parameter, we're gonna set the default to 0. Save. So even though the material is working, the fire effect is not showing, but that is okay, because that is what we want to be controlling. And this is where our blueprint stuff is going to come in. So I have to go back a map, make sure to save regularly. We made a folder for material, but we also made a folder for blueprint, and that's where we're going to go in and right click, and we're going to make our blueprint. And blueprint is it's still often a mystery to me, but we're going to keep it very simple. We can ignore everything except for this top one, which is actor, and we'll just make a simple actor, blueprint actor. And you can maybe guess we're going to start with BP, blueprint, and we'll call this our fire zone. Into the fire zone. All right. And let's open it up. We're going to really go into our final stages. This is the blueprint editor. It's a bit different. We have our viewport, which will display anything that we really put in here. You can put items in here. You can leave this empty. And one important thing, we can just click close this tab, the construction script. We won't need it. It's not important right now. But we do need the event graph, which is after we delete all of these nodes, which you also don't need. This is similar. The controls are similar to the material editor that we had before. This is where we're going to put our logic. We're going to do some hardcore coding. No, it's going to be very simple. What we need is we need a little area that when the player walks into it, is going to catch on fire. And when they walk out of it, the fire is going to turn off again. So we're going to add one thing here. And that is called a collision box. Box collision. Either way. If I go back to my viewport, it will show the box. You can give it a name if you want. I'm just going to leave it default. One thing we do need to do is because if I were to drag this into my scene, it's not going to show up when we play the game. So in our details on the right, I'm going to search hidden. And then I'm going to untick hidden in game so it will show up. And we can make this a bit, I'm going to change the line thickness to, let's say, 3 to maybe give it a bit of a more urgent, careful fire zone color. All right, after we do that, just the only thing that's really important is that you untick the hidden in game, save it, and we're going to drag it into our scene. So I can just, if I have it here selected, I'm just going to drag it in, drag it up a bit. Now this is very small. So on the right in scale, make sure that the lock is locked so that it will scale everything. I'm going to make this bigger. Let's say maybe 5. Yeah. If in any case your box is maybe floating, you can just drag it down, or if you have it selected and you press end, it snaps at least to the bottom. All right. You should still have your player start in the scene. In my case, this is my player start, and it has a little arrow. So if I were to start the game, I'm gonna be pointing in that direction. But I want it to be like, if I start the game, I'm gonna be right in front of my box. So I can either move it, or in my case, I'm just gonna rotate it. Yes, let's see. I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna be in front of my box. Yeah, that's fine. All right, I'm gonna make my box a little bit bigger. Let's say 7. Here we go. All right. Everyone good?
Yep.
Box in the scene. Maybe good to double check that if you play, you're gonna be in front of the box right away, so you don't have to walk half across the level to get inside of it. All right.
How do you make the blueprint zone bigger again?
If you have it selected.
Yeah.
In my case, in the scale, just make sure you have the box here selected, and then you can put a higher number in. Or if you maybe remember from the start, if you press R, you can scale it. Just make it big enough. This is a bit crazy. Go back. All right. All right, we're going back into our blueprint because now we just have to set up the logic that says, okay, if we are inside of this, we want to turn the fire on, and if we're outside, we want to turn it off. And Unreal is making it easy for us because instead of looking for whatever start we need, if we scroll down in the details all the way down, there's this little tab with events, and I'm gonna just search through that. And the second one, on component begin overlap. So if something overlaps, we want something to happen. So that's something that we're going to use. So I'm going to press the plus button and it's going to jump me into the event graph with that node, that information already in there. So same as with the materials, you can drag out and look for whatever next information you want. First thing that we want to do is we want to check if whatever is overlapping with our box, if that's going to be the player. Because let's say if you have a whole game and you have a big forest area and you have maybe some NPCs running around, you don't want every time anything overlaps that all of a sudden your fire is going to be on. So we're just going to say we're going to cast 2, and then we need our first person character because that's the one we're using. For me, it's the top one, cast 2 blueprint of the first person character. And it will give you this note. And it's asking for an object. And we just have to connect that with the other actor here. So it will look like this. So basically what we're saying is if our first person overlaps and it's checking if it is that blueprint, then we can tell it, okay, this is what's gonna happen then. And this is also a reason why we put our parameter into our little NPC, because it's very easy to ooh, what was it called? No, I can do this. Scalar parameter, yes, set scalar parameter value. That on and off little parameter, it's called a scalar parameter. It's just like one number. We want to set that because by default we set it to 0, which is off, and we want to set it to 1. So if we drag that, or if we find that, we can connect it to this pin. So what we're doing now is if our first person overlaps with the box, the parameter value, we first have to give it the information because the collection is our NPC fire effect and the parameter name was fire on and off. So we have that information. If we overlap, we want to set our value to 1. Save. That's going to be our start. So this will be the information that we have. Was that good to follow so far? We're going a little bit fast because we're starting to get cramped on time.
Let's see if this works also.
Let's see if it works. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. All right, time to test it. If we press play, I'm gonna run in. It's on. Is it on for you guys?
How do we press play?
On the top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then you can walk just in any, like in any game, you can maybe right mouse click and then walk if it doesn't automatically. Only thing is that as soon as I get out, I'm still on fire. I will be forever on fire as soon as I hit this box. Yes.
One time hitting the fire,
but
I'm
it's
always
working.
on fire. Yes,
it's working. Yes. All right. So the last thing, or well, 2 things, because as you maybe noticed, there's a quick jump. It's just on, or it's off, and then suddenly it's on. Yes. We want to have a little bit of a slow transition. And we want to say that, okay, as soon as we get out of here, we want to not be on fire anymore, please. So we're going to set up that information. But we're going to start with the transition. And for that, let me just also show you. I forgot to show you the example. I think it's this one. Yeah. We're going to use a timeline, which is basically what we're going to say is as soon as you overlap, so on second 0, it's going to still be off. And then when it reaches maybe after a second or 2 seconds or 1.5 seconds, then it will be on.
Vera.
Thanks for joining, Colin.
Yeah, well, thanks for being so knowledgeable. Well,
I'll send you the recording and then you can make it by yourself.
Yeah, and then I'll spend like 5 hours to upgrade everything and install it first.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, okay. Thanks again.
Thanks for joining. Yeah, sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. This is what we'll be doing. I'm gonna just click this away. I'm gonna drag from, I just drag this one out. I'm gonna drag from my first person. I'm gonna look for a timeline. There's a bunch. I have to scroll down to I get this one with the little clock. Add timeline. And we can automatically give it a name. This will be our fire on off timeline. Beautiful. Don't forget to save. All right, it doesn't have any information yet, so we have to open it, and we do that by double clicking, and it will just be empty. There's no information, but we're gonna add a track by clicking plus, and then it will just be a float because we just need one value, just one number, and that will give us this little graph. Looks very scary. Not to worry. It's asking for a name again, so again, just on off or whatever you want to call it. So we need to give it two values, two keys in this case. So if I right click, I can add a key. I'm gonna do that twice. So I have two keys. For my first key, I have it selected. So time 0. So from the start, the value will be 0. So off.
I'm sorry, how do you add a key?
Right click and then add key to the curve, I think.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
perfect,
yeah.
yes.
So the first one, time and value both are 0. And then for the second one, well, I know my value needs to be 1, so it's on. And then maybe the time, let's just do 1 second. If you lost your keys, you can click this zoom to fit, vertical, horizontal, whatever you want, so you can see both of your keys. All right, we have that. So we have on the start it will be 1, and over this time it will go to a value of 1. And all we have to do now is you will see now this float. So that's a single number really. And we just have to connect that to our parameter value and save that. So from our NPC fire effect, it checks the parameter and it will give this information that we created from the timeline, and it will manipulate that parameter value over time. Let's double check if it works. I'm going in, and there's a bit of a smoother blend. I'm still on fire though.
Yeah, I know why.
Yeah. Do you know what we have to do?
Yeah, I know what you have to do.
Oh.
I ran into the same issue. If you got a timeline, you fill it in the time top of the timeline, you fill the track length.
The track length?
Yes. Open your timeline, you'll find it.
But I'm just gonna keep it simple here.
Yeah, no, just no. Yeah, okay, just open the timeline. If you put it up, the track length on the left side at the top, 5.0.
Yeah.
Put that to the end time, 1 second.
Will it then just stop?
They will stop. It will go until especially if you have an end situation if you're getting out, it will stay to full track length.
I see.
I ran into that. I ran into the same problem.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna basically also do a bit of the same. As we start here with saying on begin overlap, we're gonna use similar information, but we're just gonna say on end overlap. If I have the box selected again, if I scroll down, below the on component begin, we have also on component end. So this information, I click the plus and it's gonna pop up for me. I'm just gonna do the same, so I'm gonna duplicate, Control D.
All of the boxes?
No.
What?
We don't need to duplicate all of the boxes, right?
No, just this one. And then instead of begin overlap, this one says on end overlap. And I have to make sure the object is again also connected. And I can also duplicate this fire on off and reverse the keys, but as you can see, it already kind of does that for us. It has a little pin here, reverse. So I'm just gonna connect that, save, compile. So now the information is, as we start overlapping and it is our first person, then it's gonna set in motion that it goes from 0 to 1. And as soon as we end our overlap, so as soon as we go out, it again checks is the first person going out, and then it will reverse, so it goes from 1 to 0.
Let's
so
check.
let's check. I'm going in, it blends in, and I'm going out, and it blends out. We did it!
Hey, yes, hey, nice.
We did it! Awesome.
Nice.
Is it? But wait, is it working for everyone?
No.
We didn't do it.
My fire died a while ago.
Oh no. What happened, Izzy?
The moment I set up the collision things.
Oh no.
My fire is blue and violet though, but on purpose. I was trying to make it a
Same.
different color. Yeah, nice. I was trying to make it a different color. I could
Cool,
definitely play around with different heights of the thing, but if I would now need to know where to go to again, I wouldn't know.
I can give a
To
little
change the
summary
height.
again, because
Yeah.
we still have our, and maybe then in the meantime you can quickly double check with what
But
you
itself,
have.
everything when I play, I obviously
works.
see the box. Like I
Mhm.
see the box because I changed the box thickness. But when I go into the box, the fire comes, and when I go out, the fire stops
Yep.
gradually, basically.
All right, so a quick sum up. We made our material and we made it a post-process material. Then we make sure that we get whatever our camera is seeing, masking it through RGB, XYZ. Then we have our little lerp. So we're saying, okay, A is gonna be our scene, and B is gonna be all of our fire information, which is our texture. We got our texture to move, and we got our texture to multiply, as in get bigger or get smaller. And we can control the colors of our texture. So we're saying, okay, whatever is A, or in this case, black, if I'm saying it right, yeah, black is gonna be our scene. Whatever is a white is gonna be your fire, and this is where we control that through our linear gradient, which was our little black to white gradient. And we made that gradient a bit, well, bigger really, so that we can put the fire a bit more to the bottom so it's not overlapping on our entire screen. Yeah, we control that. We can turn it all the way off and smoothly turn it on again. And we did that by making a parameter that's inside of our material parameter collection. And then we set up our blueprint. We gave it a collision box. And we made sure it is visible as soon as we play by unticking the hidden in game. Then we give this blueprint the information that as soon as we overlap with our box, we check if it's our first person character that's overlapping. And then we made our little timeline that controls, okay, or that's basically saying, okay, over a second or 1 second, blend into, blend from off to on. And that's setting that parameter. And then we do the same by end overlap, reversing it. That's the sum up. Okay, I'm curious, Lizana, where we got lost, because it was, if you just have it on your post process, you do have all the controls and you can turn it on and off gradually.
And then if I interact with the material instance, I don't think it gradually moves like that.
Did you set up the on-off parameter in the material collection parameter? And if you slowly change that from 0 to 1, does it then slowly turn on off? Is that working?
No. So there must be something that's going wrong prior to that.
If do you have this node in your material? Do you have the right material parameter collection selected and the parameter name?
Yeah, it should be the exact same.
you have it multiplying with the gradient. And then going into the alpha of the last lerp.
Yes.
I wonder. We can get into. I'm gonna have to cut it up also because of the time, unfortunately.
I
We
understand.
already went
Yeah.
a bit over. No. But yeah, I do want to solve it, so maybe we can get into it a bit later, or maybe you can send a screenshot of your material,
Sure.
and then I can have a look at it.
Mm.
What about you, Steph? Did you get it working?
Well, I actually lost the ability to follow along with you like half an hour ago because my computer decided that it cannot run Zoom and Unreal at the same
I saw
time,
you got
and I had to
disconnected at one
choose.
point. Yeah, shit.
Yeah, so
Okay,
that's why.
but before it got disconnected, you were still able to follow along?
Yeah, and everything
Great.
worked to the point where I was following, so
Cool.
great. And I think I will remember like at least most of the stuff, so I can try doing that
Okay,
later
awesome.
as well.
I will just I'll be sure to send you a link to the recording so you can just go over it, speed it up as I'm talking all the time, and then just check if everything's working still.
I think I'll
Yeah.
do that as well.
Great.
Double check.
Yeah, cool.
I would like to show you a screenshot of mine as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
since I'm
definitely
working
do
on
that.
2 different computers, I need to check how I can send you a screenshot of it.
Definitely
So,
do that.
Yeah, I
Just
sent one in the chat.
cool.
My beautiful
Oh.
file.
yes, I basically have the same, just in turquoise and violet. How is like normal Windows screenshot?
Nice.
Sorry. How
Cool.
do I? Then I will send it over Discord. What is the screenshot short link for Windows? You guys know?
Shift Windows S.
I don't know. I just have a print screen button on my keyboard. So
That's
how lazy I am.
be sure to have the Xbox extension.
Oh, you can also have that.
If
Yeah.
you do take that
Yeah,
one,
I do have that.
if you don't have print screen, you have ability to select part of the screen you want to show.
Print screen. How do you? Okay.
There's a key in that key. Print screen assists us mostly it's over the cursor positions. The one on the keyboard is the one directly aside.
Come on, Carmen, you can do it.
Just,
you can do it.
Somebody can explain it to me, then I can send it to you over Discord because this is probably more complicated than the Unreal part. So
to wrap it up, I
Windows.
Well, what I wanted to mention is like assuming we get this working, like there's some things you can, like a next step from this. Let's say if you're making a game and you have this working, a logical next step would be to, if your player's on fire, you can, it will affect your health bar, like it will do damage to you, or maybe you have set up a spell that is casting a fireball, and then instead of, as we have set it up when walking into zone, it can also be like, if you get hit by this fireball, that's when your effect is working. But yeah, like I said, you can just swap any information here. Maybe you, instead of a fire effect, you'll have more like a lightning or shock effect or frozen effect. It can be like anything you really want. We used a linear gradient, but just to quickly show, you can also do a radial gradient, which is basically just a circle. So you can have an effect that's going from like outside in, or like over your entire screen, or from inside out. Like there's many different things you can really do with this. Then there's one more thing that I wanted to share, because if you go to the documentation of Unreal Engine, there's one specifically for post-process materials. I will also send you these links later though. Here it shows also more examples of different looks that you can give with the post-process volume and just using the materials. Another example, maybe you also know that from games, is if an enemy is hiding behind a wall, but you can still see the outline of the enemy. That's also something you can do through your post-process material. Like there's many different things and blends that you can do. And yeah, there's just a bunch of more information here. And then just some more, but that's just material specific. some of the YouTube channels that I really enjoy and have used a lot to get a better basic understanding of materials is this one. Again, I will send you a link later. They have a whole, what's it called, 5-minute material where they touch on all of the bigger, most used nodes inside of the material editor and just quickly explain and give examples how you can use them, which is really cool to check out. They also have very active and fun Discord community. They do almost every day. They have like a little Twitch stream where they work on blueprints, materials, just making their own game. It's really fun. They also always have a cat in their live stream, which is also very nice. If you really want to get into depth, I would recommend Ben Cower, but he has a bunch, and he has also a specific playlist specific for post-process effects. But anything really there is to know about Unreal. He also, with anything that's shaders and materials, he always does both Unity and Unreal. Shows the comparison and how it works for both. There's more intro to advanced materials. There's really basics on materials, very specific for landscape materials. It's goes very in depth. So if you really want to get to next level or just get a overall basic understanding, this is also really one that I can recommend. But yeah, together with the recording, I will send all this information to you later, and you can continue your learning journey there.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right, guys.
Thank
I
you
want
so
to thank
much
you all.
for
Yeah, thank you for joining. And who knows, maybe see you next time.
Yes.
Yes, please.
All right.
Bye.
Enjoy your
Bye.
evening.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a nice evening.